Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, max out your savings. The more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free home delivery on any smart bed with base. Limited time. Check it out at a Sleep Number store near you or at sleepnumber.com today.
You know that moment when your gut is screaming, this isn't working, but your brain is busy listing all the reasons to keep seeing them? In this episode, we're breaking down why it's so hard to walk away and how you can actually do it. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no-nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease. Whether you've been dating for a while or you're just starting out, I believe dating can be fun, and it gets more fun when you walk away from what's not working for you. That's what we're talking about in this episode. So first, we're going to get into when it's time to leave, someone that you're newly dating or dating long-term. Then we're going to talk about why it's so hard, even when you know it's not ideal. And of course, we'll talk about how to actually do it, what to say, and everything. And I'll share my experience as well. This episode is going to be really helpful for you if you're on the fence about someone or you're not sure if you should stay or go. Before we dive in, I have a really quick announcement, and I'm so excited because I am co-hosting my first ever retreat over Valentine's Day weekend in 2026. So yes, you can actually join me in person with my friend and co-host, Danielle Bezalel. She's a sex educator, and I've had her on the podcast. We're hosting a 4-day retreat in Palm Springs, California, where you can kick back, relax, and pour energy into yourself and work on recentering and realigning yourself when it comes to your love life. You'll get all the details in the show notes, and there are only 12 spots in this retreat. So if you're at all interested, it's worth checking out because the spots will fill up really quickly. All right. So that's super exciting in the show notes, along with all of my resources for you. Let's get into it. So at what point do you walk away from an early dating scenario or a longer relationship? I think the biggest, most important sign to look for is if the relationship is adding more stress than peace to your life and has been for a while. If someone is not adding peace to your life, might not be the best fit for you. And of course, there is a certain amount of peace you'll experience as a single person because you are not in a relationship. Relationships come with some conflict, some work. You're having to deal with another person and all of their baggage and your baggage. But overall, what you're looking for, what you're going for here is a relationship that adds more to your life than it takes away. So if you're in a dating situation or a relationship with someone and they're taking away from your life, they're removing value from your life, that's a sign it might be time to walk away. Another sign is if you tried everything to work on your relationship, but nothing is working. So this is more for longer term relationships, right? Where if you've been together for a while and you have tried talking things out, you've read relationship books together, maybe you've gone to counseling or therapy, whatever it is, you've tried a lot of different ways to approach the issues and nothing has changed. That is a sign. It's time to stop beating the dead horse and just walk away. Also, really quick, just want to say this advice does not apply to abusive relationships. That's a different protocol in that situation. Like in an abusive relationship, you wouldn't try to work on it. You wouldn't try to see if it can get better before you leave. You would just try to leave. So again, just want to make that clear that this advice is for relationships that are not abusive. If you're dating, right, in an early dating situation where there is less of a foundation, you're going to want to walk away when you know there are huge deal breakers that make it so a relationship wouldn't work out long term. The classic, if they want kids, you don't, or maybe they need to date someone in a certain religion and that is not your religion. Maybe they're moving somewhere and you can't move for work. These are the things that are like, okay, this is absolutely a deal breaker. It cannot work. That is definitely a sign to walk away. And these things might come up early. They might come up in the first 3 dates. They might come up in the first 3 months. But when you see them, when there's a deal breaker and you both know it can't be worked through, that's why it's called a deal breaker, you walk away. Again, another one, if you're dating and if they've shown you that they're not consistent, they're not reliable, not trustworthy or respectful, that is your sign to walk away. Because if you're staying with someone who is inconsistent, unreliable, who lies and is dishonest and who is disrespectful, that is settling. So we don't want any of that. And you need to walk away if that is your situation. Another example, if you're dating and you're just not feeling it, like if you're not feeling the romantic connection, if you're not feeling the attraction, if there's something clearly missing and you have actually given it a shot, that's also a sign to walk away. Your relationship, like your next healthy relationship, isn't going to be forced. So if you feel like you're forcing it, that's a sign that you're probably going to want to walk away from that. Another question that comes up when we're talking about ending something, whether it's a long-term relationship or early dating, is how long do you give it, right? How long do you see if this could work or not? And if you're dating, you want to watch for patterns and what behavior of theirs is consistent. So this might take a couple weeks of dating someone. Usually it takes, I would say, at least a month of dating someone to see what is consistent. And of course, I know some of you have had experiences where someone was really consistent for 3 months and then started completely going MIA, right? Or they just weren't responsive, or they'd fall off the grid, or they just suddenly go cold. So it can take, I guess, up to 3 months or more to see what is consistent. But sometimes you can tell right away that they were treating you really well in the first week on their best behavior. And then the second week, they've just completely fallen off or whatever. So the bottom line is you give it long enough to see what their consistent behavior is. Another one, if you're dating, you want to also watch for deal breakers, like I said, and other reasons that continuing would mean settling or getting into something that just wouldn't work long term, and that's not what you want. One mistake I see a lot of people make in early dating is they'll meet someone who has like kind of a semi deal breaker and they're trying really hard to make it work, but it kind of goes back to what I was saying up top, which is that trying to make it work adds more stress than peace to their lives. So, I've said this on the podcast before. You choose your hard. You choose your difficulty in a relationship when you're choosing a person. So even though you might have a really strong connection with someone, if there's something going on in their life or your life that makes a relationship really difficult to sustain, that is a sign it's not going to work. So you might need to explore that a little bit to see if it's really going to work or not, or how hard it will actually be before you walk away. Sometimes you'll just know this is going to be too hard and I don't want to deal with this, and you're going to walk away from that. So for dating, if we're going to get down to kind of the actual numbers here, I would say give it at least a month before deciding what to do if you're on the fence. And I'm not talking about like, if you already know you're not attracted to them, then okay, that you don't need to give it a month. Like if 2 weeks in you're not, don't wait a month. But you know what I mean? If there's something that you're not sure if it's a potential deal breaker or not, you might need to give it more time. Or if you're not sure what behavior of theirs is consistent, you might need to give it around a month. So let's just talk about long-term relationships, because this is trickier. When you're with someone for 6 months, a year, 2 years or more, it's harder because you have more of a foundation. There's a bit of this like, oh, we've been together for so long, we should try to make it work type of vibe. It really depends on what the core issue is. But if you've truly attempted to address whatever the issue is and it hasn't really improved, then you need to, I would say, don't give it longer than 3 months, depending on what the issue is. Some issues might take longer to resolve, but I would say 3 months is a pretty good, comfortable, like that's a quarter, that's 90 days. Like that's enough time to make a change in a lot of cases. So if it's still getting nowhere after that, then it might be a sign you've got to walk away. To give you an example, I'll just talk about my experience. So in my last relationship, it took me 8 months to break up with my ex. And the last time that I broke up with him was not the first time. I had initiated a breakup twice in 2019, and he convinced me to stay a few more years. So looking back, like I wish I had told myself this advice of like, you already know it's not going to work. More work on this issue isn't going to fix the problem. And it was tough. I struggled to walk away from that relationship because he was a good person. There's no doubt about that. He was a stand-up, good guy. He was responsible, respectful, and he cared about me a lot. We loved each other. we had a good life together on paper, right? That was another reason I stayed way too long in that relationship. We lived in a great apartment in a great location. We weren't limited in any way. We weren't in debt. We just kind of got to live together. I don't know if I would call it thriving, but we had a pretty good life. And also, we had been together for so long. And that was something that he would often point out when I was doubting things like, wow, we've been together for so long. Do you really want to throw away everything we've built together? That was something he would say a lot. And, looking back, it's like just because you've invested 5, 6, 7, 8 years with someone doesn't mean that that relationship is meant to go beyond that. Like, some people are only meant to be in your life for a set number of years or months or weeks. And that's kind of that chapter of your life. And it's okay if that's the end of the chapter and you have new chapters to write with new people in the future. I really wanted to make it work. And I really thought that with enough work, it would all be fine, that everything was solvable and we could figure it out because we were two smart, capable people who loved each other. And I'll say, like, our core issues really were focused on attachment. Like, we just had that classic anxious avoidant cycle. And I was the anxious one. He was the avoidant one in this situation. And we didn't have the right tools to address these issues. But even with the right tools, I don't think we would have been able to at that point in our lives because of how much damage had been done over the years because we didn't know about repairing. We didn't know about bids for attention and affection. We didn't know how to care for our relationship properly. We didn't know about taking space. There were just so many things we didn't know along the way that by the time we got to that 6-year point together, a lot of damage had been done. And I don't think either of us had the desire or the tools or anything to fix it. And it's sad. It happens, right? Even to good people who love each other, right? It just happens like that. And yeah, all in all, I should have walked away a lot sooner than I did. So on the other side, in dating, I can't say I struggled as much to walk away when I was in my dating season because I'd already learned that lesson with my breakup. And I just knew that I didn't have to hang on so tightly when things clearly weren't working, or I just knew they were not going to work. I kind of was more ruthless in my dating season. I cut it off quickly with guys who I knew drank way too much. That was a pretty obvious one that happened multiple times. Like by the third date, I could tell they were drinking at least 3 drinks in our 2-hour date or something like that. And it was like, okay, this is not for me. And I would cut it off quickly instead of like, maybe this can work. No, I really was thinking about how can I choose my hard? What difficulty level do I want to choose when I'm entering in a relationship with someone? And I knew I didn't want to enter a relationship with someone who had alcohol issues. That just wasn't for me. So that's why I was more ruthless and able to just walk away quickly. I will say though, in my early 20s, when I was dating, right after college and before I met my ex, I hung on to crushes for dear life for years, like unrequited love fully. And I hung on to my college relationship for so long after it ended, and it drove my friends crazy because I was just talking about him all the time. I could not let this guy go. And that was very much me dating for potential and not seeing the reality of what was going on. And I think like for my college ex specifically, I really admired him. He was pretty popular in my social circles and a huge flirt. And like we really just could not get out of each other's orbit until school was over, like we graduated and like weren't in the same location. So I just want to say I've been there. I have had moments where it's been really hard to let go, to walk away, to end it, to close the door, to block them. It's part of the process. Like if you're struggling with this right now, this is part of the process of learning how to date. You will get better at it with practice. And I hope this episode helps you as well. What I learned in my experience is that letting go of people is hard, but when you eventually do it, you make room for better things in your life. It's easy to get trapped in thinking you'll never meet anyone who's as good looking or funny or kind or who you have great sex with or whatever it is. But the best reframe is that everyone you date is going to be different. And that comes with the different good things too. Like you're going to have different kinds of sex with different people. You're going to have different kinds of conversations and inside jokes with the different people you date. And it can all be good. Sometimes different is even better. And different is usually necessary because what you had with the previous person didn't work out, right? It's kind of good that it's different. Truly, sometimes you need a different kind of person for a different outcome. So don't get caught up in this whole narrative of like, I'm never going to find anyone as good as them. The reframe is, I'm going to find someone different, and maybe different is better for me. And I say that because we can't move through life holding out for people to change. We have to let go and meet a whole different person. It's usually a less painful route than waiting for someone to change, and that change usually never comes. So let's take a quick break and then we'll get into why it's so hard to walk away. What I love about doing this show is that I get to introduce listeners to all these different ways to get support in their dating journeys. And one of the main ways is therapy. You've probably heard me talk about how working with a therapist for the last 7 or 8 years has helped me improve not just my romantic relationship, but my friendships and my family relationships too. The hard part is finding a therapist that actually works with your insurance. Having done it a few times, I can tell you from experience, it's harder than it sounds. That's why I'm so excited to partner with Rula, a healthcare company that makes getting quality therapy simple and affordable. Rula works with most major insurance plans, and sessions can cost as little as $15, sometimes even $0, depending on your coverage. This is huge. If you've ever worked with a therapist, you know sometimes the cost can be astronomical, and I love that Rula makes it easier on your wallet. Finding a therapist on your own can be overwhelming, but Rula supports you every step of the way, helping you find the right therapist, stay consistent, and actually make progress. They have a network of over 15,000 licensed therapists and psychiatrists across the country, and they'll match you with someone who fits your needs and preferences. You can start meeting with your therapist as soon as the next day. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to rula.com/datingintentionally to get started today. After you sign up, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Go to rula.com/datingintentionally and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. One question I get asked a lot about my dating journey is, how did you manage to go on 150 dates in a year? Part of it is because I was determined to master dating, and the other part of it, well, it's because I am really big into routines. I don't know who I am without my routines. They keep me on track with everything from having relationship check ins with my husband to getting to the gym 4 times a week to making sure I always have delicious meals ready to go in the fridge. And something I recently added to my routine that I'm so excited about is AG1. AG1 is a daily health drink clinically shown to fill in common nutrient gaps. I've been adding a scoop into my protein shakes every day, and I love having a little boost of nutrients that I know I might not be getting otherwise, especially as we head into the holiday season when our schedules get thrown off and routines pretty much go out the window. It's great to have an easy way to support your body and prioritize wellness, even with this season's chaos. I've been using AG1's original flavor, which tastes like pineapple and vanilla, in my daily shake, and it's so good. I love that it helps me cover the bases with what my body needs, and with AG1, it's just so easy to do. If you're looking to boost your wellness routine, I recommend checking out AG1. Head to drinkag1.com/dating to get a free welcome kit with an AG1 flavor sampler and a bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2 when you first subscribe. That's drinkag1.com/dating. Welcome back. So you might struggle with walking away from these short relationships or even a longer one, mostly because of the potential of what could have been. We get caught up in these future fantasies of, well, what if this one thing could change? Or what if we just gave it more time? What if I changed? What if our circumstances change? What if, what if, what if? The issue is that at a certain point, you have seen it all with that person, especially if you're in a relationship with them. And a part of you knows that it's not worth staying in this just to continue to be miserable, even though, yeah, maybe something possibly could change. Maybe, but probably not. And if you're dating, it's hard to walk away because, in the early stages, especially when you find someone you have a strong connection with, you're like, oh my God, finally, I found someone who I connect with. We find each other attractive and there's chemistry and there's a spark and there's all these things, but like this one thing doesn't work or they're not responsive. And part of it, I think, is because we don't want to go back to square one with anyone because let's be real, dating is kind of a grind sometimes. Another part of it is like, well, what if I don't ever connect with anyone again? So we hang on in scarcity mode. That's why it's so hard to walk away. Another reason it's hard, whether you are in a long relationship or newly dating someone, is we tend to focus a lot on the positives, the sex, the connection. how they are on paper, whatever it is that you're really, you really value. Maybe it's how good things are when you're together, even though you feel like a crazy person when you're apart because you don't hear from them. I was really stuck in this thinking, and I could tell going back, looking at my journal entries from when I was dating my ex, and I would write about like the fights we had and the issues we had. And they were mostly, again, rooted in anxious and avoidant attachment issues. I'd end every entry with something like, but he's so good to me and I love him, so I guess it's fine. Like I was really trying to convince myself, it's like, here's all these things that I'm unhappy with, but like we love each other, so it's fine. I was really just stuck in that thinking for a very, very long time. I wish I hadn't focused on the positive so much and paid more attention to the reality. Like I mentioned earlier, another reason it's hard to walk away is the longevity of your relationship. If you've been together for a while, that's just the sunk cost fallacy. Another reason it's hard to walk away that I don't think is talked about that often is the shame and embarrassment around something not working out. There's so much pressure to have successful relationships in our society, and sometimes it can be really crushing to have to tell your friends and family and maybe even social media that you're back on the market. I remember this. I've had a very public life for like a decade. So when I had to go on my Instagram and say like I'm moving and my ex, we broke up, there was definitely some shame and embarrassment around that. Absolutely. So that is a reason why it can be hard to walk away if it's really on your mind, if your friends and family are like really watching you. Another reason that it could be hard to walk away from a long-term relationship to watch out for, like if you're not in a relationship right now, definitely watch out for this one, is if you rely on them for something that's like vital to your survival. And this could be like being in a relationship with someone who is covering certain expenses in your life, or you rely on them to be able to live, whatever that looks like. Also, if you're relying on them for all of your social interaction, your partner can't meet all of your social needs. But I think a lot of people do get sucked into their partner becomes their best friend and then quickly kind of becomes their only friend. That's why it's so fucking important to keep investing in your community, your friends and family, and everything outside of your relationship, because you just don't want to be ever caught in this trap. I accidentally put myself in this scenario, by the way, in a different context. My ex worked for me in my previous company, and I relied on him for a lot of stuff. I paid him. I was in a position, though, where breaking up with him meant replacing him in my company, and that was a very challenging process. It was very expensive, and I think if he hadn't been working in my company, I would have ended it sooner. That definitely caused me to hang on way longer than I should have. The last reason it's hard to walk away sometimes is that everything is great except for this one thing. Maybe you don't want the same things in life. Maybe one of you is moving really far and you don't want to do long distance, or there's a value that you won't budge on that's a deal breaker. It can be so easy to overlook these things and sweep it under the rug and keep dating, but ultimately it does come to get you at some point. So those are all the reasons that I can think of why it's hard to walk away. If I missed any, please let me know in the comments on Spotify or YouTube. You can also DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. I love hearing from you. Hit me with your questions, your comments, your concerns, your feedback. My DMs are open to you. And again, I absolutely love connecting with you. So thank you for messaging me. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about how to walk away. How do you actually remove yourself? How do you leave? How do you end it? The first step here, we have to talk about mindset, okay? You need to shift into a mindset where you're prioritizing yourself. You're putting yourself and your needs first. It's really hard to walk away when you're not just thinking of, what do I need? What is best for me? Because when you're at that point of walking away, you are doing that to create a better future for yourself. You're no longer thinking about your future with this other person. You're like, I need something different for me to be happy. So that there's a shift that comes with that. And it can feel weird if you're someone who's not used to doing that. It can feel really uncomfortable. But walking away means you are deciding you are not settling. That is what it is. You're deciding this is too important for me to settle. Who I choose to be with is too important for me to settle in the situation where it's not going to work. Walking away is giving yourself a chance to actually be happy. When I finally broke up with my ex the last time, the time that stuck, The day before, I realized that everything else in my life was really great except for my relationship. And that had been the case for a while. Breaking up with him meant choosing myself and choosing my peace over forcing something for another year or two that was clearly not working for either of us. The next step after you're in this mindset of I'm prioritizing myself, is making a decision, okay? A concrete decision. And this is important because what ends up happening sometimes, especially in longer relationships, is and even in dating, there could be room for negotiation. And that's what happened to me. The first two times I tried to break up with my ex, he negotiated with me. There was an opening. He pulled me back in, and I don't fault him for that. It's fine. But you don't want to leave room for that. You need to make a very concrete decision of like, I'm doing this for me. This conversation is going to end with me leaving the situation. There's no room for me to come back in this. So that is the decision you have to make. You also want to focus on your why. Why are you walking away? Why are you choosing yourself? And the answer is because you matter. Your happiness matters. And you have very specific dating goals that this person doesn't align with anymore. And those dating goals could be anything from getting married, having kids, or whatever. You have to actively walk away from situations and connections that won't lead you there, right? Choosing to walk away, even though it feels counterintuitive, does get you closer to what you want because you're walking away from someone who doesn't want what you want, or you won't be able to get what you want with that person. That's why you're walking away. Of course, your dating goals come into play here, and that could be your dating goals, like where you want your relationship to go, like marriage or kids, or it could also be the things you're looking for in a partner, your needs, your values, your non-negotiables. And I know this sounds counterintuitive, but walking away from someone where your needs aren't being met or who doesn't align with your goals gets you closer to them because you're no longer putting energy into the relationship where you're not getting your needs met or you're not getting closer to the goals you're trying to reach here with a partner. So even though it sounds like you're going backwards, you are actually going forwards. When you decide to end something, don't even worry or think about what's next in terms of your dating life or like going out and starting to date. If this spiral is happening where you're like, well, if we end it, then I have to get back on the apps and then I have to like go to these singles events and oh my gosh, I'll be single again. Like shut those thoughts down. You're in control of the spiral. You don't have to even worry about that. You can be like, okay, thanks, brain. Thank you for reminding me of what's in the future. I'm not going to think about that now. We can worry about that later. Now let's just worry about having this conversation, which of course brings me to having the conversation. So when you're telling someone that it's over, let's just say you have been in a relationship for a while, you can say something like, hey, this has been on my mind. I need to share something with you. And you can tell them what's going on. Tell them, I think this should be over. I don't want to see you anymore. Whatever it is, it's going to sound harsh. There's no easy, light way to say it. And there's never going to be like the perfect time. Like there's always going to be some party or anniversary or birthday or holiday or something coming up. It's like, oh, should I do it before or after? Just do it before. Okay, do it before. I made the mistake of breaking up with my ex like on our 6-year anniversary. I wanted to wait until after. I couldn't do it. So not that we were doing anything special, but I'm just saying there's never a good time. It's never gonna be perfect. It's gonna feel really harsh when you say it, especially if it's been a long relationship, but don't let them negotiate. And it's truly like ripping off a Band-Aid. I know that's a cliche, but it truly is just like once it's out of your mouth, it's a lot easier to carry on that conversation. If you're a 1 month in, 2 months in, you can decide if you want to do a phone call and say, hey, like, I think we should go our separate ways. You can also do this over text. I think text is appropriate if it's like 5, 6, 7 dates, like that's fine. I have a bunch of anti-ghost text templates. I'll link it in the show notes for you. I also have a whole video on this, which I'll link in the show notes as well, but that's appropriate. You can do it in person too if you want. I don't think there's any wrong way to do it. I would just say maybe don't text them if you've been dating them for longer than 2 months. I think 2 months is like you want to do a phone call or in person at that point. And I know it's scary. I think the phone call is probably your best bet to avoid a ton of awkwardness and pain because again, you can just hang up the phone. You don't have to see them. And it still feels personal. It still feels like a text is very impersonal. So that's why, again, you don't want to text someone if you've been seeing them for at least 2 months. Let me know what you think about that. Maybe you disagree. Let me know your take in the comments. no matter how you plan on doing this, whether it's in person, on the phone, text, have a plan for after the conversation. Where will you go? What are you going to do immediately after? Are you going to go to a friend's house? Are you going to call a friend? Are you going to DM me that you did it? Like, just have a thought, like, what should I do to make myself feel cared for after this hard moment? I don't think people think about this. You have a chance to plan a little bit and kind of catch yourself after the fall of this hard conversation that you're going to have. And finally, when all is said and done, you want to make the transition out of that relationship easy for yourself. And this is more if you've been dating for a while, even early dating. And that, the number one rule, which you've probably heard at this point, is to go no contact. If that's an option, assuming, again, I know that if you have kids together or if you work together, maybe no contact isn't an option at that point. But if it's just someone that you're dating and there's no kids or any other ties involved, go no contact. That means unfollowing them on social and or removing them. Like, you can remove them from your following so they don't see your stuff anymore, or you can block them or you can mute them. You have options. I don't think there's anything wrong with blocking someone for your mental health. That is something that is totally appropriate to do if you need time to heal after ending it with someone. And especially in early dating, which you shouldn't be following each other before you're official anyway, but if you are following each other in early dating, I highly recommend unfollowing and removing them, because the worst is when you end it with someone or you walk away and then you shouldn't be keeping tabs on their life. Like, there is absolutely no reason to do that. I know some people disagree with me on this, but especially if you're not doing the whole let's be friends thing, which you shouldn't. I really don't believe in that at this point. It's best to just cut it clean for your mental health. Again, prioritizing yourself. Another thing to do is to enlist a backup person to text every time you want to text them. Like, you have a friend where you could just text them, I'm texting you because I'm fighting the urge to text my ex. I can be that person for you. You can DM me. I don't care. I'm on Instagram at dating.intentionally. You can DM me instead of texting your ex if that will help you. It's just best to keep it clean and no contact. To recap, when you're ending a relationship, when you're walking away from an early dating situation, you want to prioritize yourself. That's why you're doing it. You're like, I'm choosing my happiness. I'm choosing my love story. You want to make a concrete decision, bring up the conversation in whatever way is appropriate for your relationship, and have a plan for after the conversation. Okay? That's how you can show yourself some care. And again, a transition a little bit easier, because this isn't fun ever. Whether you've been on 4 dates or you've been together for 4 years, it's never easy. And before we wrap up, I just want to reiterate how important it is to be able to walk away from your situationships and walk away from dating situations where it's not going to work, or it's just really stressful for you. You don't have to white knuckle through dating someone who doesn't text you back and is keeping you on your toes and is playing games with you. Absolutely not. You don't have time for that. Walk away and follow these steps. Okay, some reflection questions for you on this. This is just for you to think about. Where in your life are you holding on to something that isn't working? Maybe it's not even your dating life. Maybe it's something else. Is there anything you're holding on to that isn't working for you that you could let go of, that you could walk away from, that you could break up with? Another question, if you are in a situation now where you're like, I don't know if I should leave, what's the real reason you're scared to leave? Is it around fear? Is it shame? Is it, because you don't want to be single again? What is the real reason? Get really honest with yourself. And then ask yourself if that is worth hanging on to a relationship where you're just not happy in. And finally, I'm going to reflect on, what would you gain if you walked away? Think about all the things that are waiting for you after you walk away from the thing that's not working out. You get your peace back. When I broke up with my ex, I felt an immediate lift of anxiety. I remember the days following that breakup, I was like, wow, I have so much space in my brain because I don't have relationship anxiety anymore. I was not expecting that at all. It wasn't until after we broke up that I realized how much brain space that relationship anxiety was taking up. So think about what you can gain when you actually walk away from what's not working for you. Okay, quick break, and then we're going to get into today's dating dilemma. Can't wait to get into this one. Thank you for submitting your dating dilemmas, by the way. You can submit a fresh one in the link in the show notes. It says submit a dating question. I'm answering these on the podcast and on YouTube. So if you want more answers to your questions, go over to YouTube and watch those videos. Okay, this one was a little long, so I did summarize it. Let's do it. I, 30 female, recently went on 4 dates with a 32-year-old man. Everything seemed promising. He planned thoughtful dates, paid for everything, was attentive and affectionate, and even initiated sweet gestures like holding hands and forehead kisses. I felt comfortable taking things slowly with intimacy because this is my first serious dating experience. On our 4th date, I noticed we didn't hold hands or have much physical touch, but I wasn't too concerned. I thought we'd build that naturally over time. Right after, though, he texted saying something felt missing between us and that it would be better if we kept searching. I'm confused. Was it because we didn't progress physically? Because he paid for all the dates? Or something else I missed? I told him I felt a genuine connection and offered to chat if he wanted to clear things up, but now I'm second guessing myself. Did I make a mistake by offering to talk after he said he didn't see a future? Is moving slowly with physical intimacy a turnoff for some men? And how do I communicate I do want intimacy just at my own pace? I really liked him and hoped we'd move forward, but now I'm left wondering what I could have done differently. Thank you for this. So here are my thoughts. When someone ends something with you, it is totally fine to ask why, but sometimes you won't get a clear answer or any answer at all. I don't think you did anything wrong by asking for a conversation about it, but I think after 4 dates, it doesn't feel as warranted because it was such a brief connection. 4 dates is different than dating for 4 months. If someone says something is missing, sometimes that really is all it is, and there wasn't anything else more to it. I have no clue what this guy means when he says something is missing, and I don't really know what anyone means when they say that, right? Only they do. You might be right. Maybe he was looking for a faster physical connection, and if he was, then that means you guys don't align on that because you have a slower pace, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a slower pace when it comes to physical intimacy. A lot of people need that, and a lot of people are totally okay with that. Since you seem so focused on the physical part, I'm wondering if your need to go slow is an insecurity for you, and that's why I'm saying it's totally normal if you need to go slower and need to build more trust and experiences with someone. I don't know about you, if you're listening, if you agree with me, but I want to rule out that he ended it because he was paying for all the dates. We can only assume that he did that because he wanted to, right? If he didn't want to, then he should have spoken up about it and asked to split or something like that. Like, you're not a mind reader. You're not supposed to know if someone wants to do something or not, and they're doing it anyway, right? Like, if they're not saying anything about it, all you have is their actions to go off of. So we have to assume here that he was fine paying for it because he didn't say anything otherwise. Is moving slow physically a turnoff for some men? Maybe. And for some, it could be even preferred. Dating is really just about meeting people until you meet someone who is aligned with you and on board with what you need in terms of pacing. You don't need to change this about yourself or make yourself uncomfortable. And finally, I just want to add that you can talk about this in early dating. You know, you can just say, like, by the way, I am a slow burner when it comes to physical intimacy, but I'm really excited to keep getting to know you. I just wanted to give you a heads up. And if they come back with like, well, we need to have sex before we become official, like, that's just not your match. And most good daters will probably be like, hey, that's totally fine. I totally understand. And not make a big deal out of it because it really isn't a big deal. I hope this helps. I hope this gives you some clarity. I wish I was a mind reader. I wish I knew why this guy said something was missing when you felt like everything was great. But that is how it goes sometimes. And I want to thank you again for your dating dilemma. You can submit yours in the show notes. I love getting them, love sharing them with you. So thank you. And I want to thank you so much for listening. Thanks for trusting me. Don't forget, you are doing great. And if you know someone who is navigating dating and could use a confidence boost or a fresh perspective, I would love it if you share this episode with them. And if this podcast has helped you, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify really helps me. Once again, I'm Talia. This is Dating Intentionally, and I'll catch you next time.